Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Chiseled. And why do we call it Chiseled? Because we're all a work in progress. I'm your host. I'm Rob Commodari. I'm also the author of the book Better Than You Think and the book Next Level Your Life. Today, I'm with Jake Ballentine. Jake Ballentine is a motivational speaker, success coach, sales trainer, founder of the Speakers, Authors, and Coaches Network, which I'm a part of. Thank you, Jake. And it's a community of over 15,000 amazing people, as Jake puts it. I hope I'm one of those amazing people, Jake. Anyway, so Jake wears a lot of hats. He's as a motivational speaker. He's spoken over 700 events, 47 states. The 3 states he hasn't spoken yet are in Alabama, Hawaii, and Arkansas. So the audience out there, if any of you out there in those 3 states, you got to hire him. He's got to reach that goal, close the gap. He's also a community builder. He has that Speakers, Authors, Coaches Network, as I mentioned a couple of seconds ago. He's a success coach. He's coached over 1,000 clients to help them get clear, get focused, and reach their version of the mountaintop. And if you don't know it yet, I'm going to tell you now. He's got on Facebook. It's the Mountaintop. Give it to me, Jake. The Mountaintop. What's the Facebook
Motivation?
group?
Mountaintop Mastermind.
Mastermind. I was a loss for words there. And then again, he's a sales trainer. So Jake Ballentine, he's married. He's got 1 child. He has these events occasionally. I've been to one live, and it's awesome. I get on his mastermind occasionally. So, Jake, welcome to the show from, is it Utah, right?
Salt Lake City,
Utah. Okay.
Yep.
Anyway, but thank you. Thanks for joining the show, Jake. Glad to have you here.
Hey, I'm so glad to be here as well, Rob. Thank you.
So, look, Jake's. I've just met Jake about, I'm going to say about a year ago, a little over a year ago. And I guess inadvertently met him because I was posting my Chiseled podcast. I was posting. I said, I saw this thing, Speakers, Coaches Network, right? And I posted on there, and I think I got flagged. And what happened? So, you can't be on here. You can't be posting this. And then Stephanie Hyde had reached out to me, and here we are. We're talking. We connect, and I joined your mastermind.
Well, let me say this. We have automation set up that just basically deletes links because we have like literally 100 spammers a day trying to sell Bitcoin to people and trying to it was turning into a full-time job, was just keeping track of all that. So we set up automation. So it's not like I was sitting there going, this guy Rob looks shady. No.
So, well, anyway, here I am. Yeah, it's been a good thing. So I've enjoyed our conversations over the last year. And so Jake has all this going on. He's a speaker, motivational speaker, coach, so on and so forth. Jake, you're a young guy. You've been doing this for like 15 plus years. You're having your business for 15 plus years. Give us a little background. How did you get into this?
So I never wanted to have a real job. That's essentially the real answer of how I got into this. Was I didn't want to have a real job. And now what I was doing, if I go back to college, I took some time off of college and was following my passion as a musician. Here's this guitar here. I was following my passion as a musician, performing, playing guitar and singing, performing all over the Western United States. I mean, nothing huge, but I was making it work. I got to a point a couple of years into that where I thought, this is really great, but my purpose for performing music was using this tool of music to communicate a positive message. And in reality, I was getting paid to entertain drunk people, was kind of what was really going on. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't where I wanted to be spending my time. So I went back to school. And at that time, my goal was I was going to go and be a counselor for teenagers. I got my degree in psychology. I was going to go and get a master's in counseling afterwards. But as I was doing this, I had this idea of what if I mixed motivational speaking, psychology, and music and started going to schools and doing these presentations that could help them and make a difference in their lives. And that was really where this started. But I had no idea that there was a career opportunity in that. That wasn't something that even crossed my mind. I didn't know that. I thought I was doing it as a volunteer kind of a thing. And I did a few of them as a volunteer. And then I had the 5 words that changed my life. And those 5 words were, how much do you charge? And those 5 words changed my life because I went, wait a second. This is an option. This is an option as a career. I had no idea. And once I figured that out, I went all in with that. And over the next 7 years, I went to hundreds of schools all over the country. Um, got to speak in front of, I think it's about 300,000 teenagers over that period of time. And
Wow.
it was just fantastic. And um, what I learned was some of the things that were really important to people in general, but the things that I wanted to hear when I was younger was about the importance that you're better than you think you are. You can do so much more than you think you can. And about building communities in these schools and helping people realize that they need each other and that they are leaders. They can step up and they can be leaders, and that they're leaders whether they think it or not. There's someone who's following them. So, long story short, that is where I got into this world. Now, my business has evolved and changed just like every business does over the course of 15 years. But that was the start, was getting into it in that space.
So when you got into it in that space, was there the imposter syndrome? Did that overcome you at all? Like the meaning, like, did you think you were good enough or smart enough, or you were going to have an impact on these kids?
So I'll say this. Short answer is no. Long answer is yes. And the short answer is no. I felt very comfortable working with teenagers. The long answer is there's a reason why I focused on teenagers at the beginning, and it took me 7 years before I started talking with adults. Was because I felt like I had something to offer the teenagers, and it wasn't until 7 years into it when I started going to more personal development events, I started connecting with more adults, and I realized, adults are just big teenagers that have kind of the same issues. They have the same things going on. And that's when I started to feel comfortable with that. But I never really felt that with teenagers. I always felt very comfortable in that setting with teenagers. But I didn't start speaking to adults and working with adults until years into it.
What was that first one like with adults? Do you remember it?
I realized that I over prepared. I realized that I created way more content than I needed. I thought that people were so advanced, and what I realized was is that I'll say this: I was trying to prove myself by making things so complicated and so advanced, when in reality, the fundamentals of success were what people really needed to hear.
Yeah, and what are those fundamentals?
I'd say the fundamentals of success are, number one, believing in yourself. And as cliche as that sounds, I think that that's where everything starts. You know, the great Henry Ford quote, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you are absolutely right. So number one, everything comes from believing in yourself. I'd say the second thing is having a target, having a goal, having a vision, whatever word you want to use, but having an outcome that matters to you. And that's where the real key comes in. If it's not something that matters to you, it's very hard to go and reach that goal. People will have this big debate, this big discussion about motivation, about discipline, about all these different things. But at the end of the day, if you don't have something that actually matters to you, it's very hard to be able to consistently put in the effort that is going to get you there. So have a goal, a target, an outcome that really matters to you. Then I would say the next thing is creating a plan, but not over creating a plan, not over planning, not overthinking. I think this is where a lot of people get stuck. Some is good doesn't mean more is better. So you want to create a strategy, but creating the greatest strategy in the world before you're going to take action because you know you want it to be perfect. This is usually fear masked by practicality. This is fear masked by this perfectionism, when in reality, what we really need to do is to create a plan that is good enough, and good enough is good enough. Then we start taking action towards that plan. We start taking action, moving in that direction. And the reason why we don't want to over plan is no matter how long you plan, the moment you get on that path, you're going to find that there's going to be a tree covering that path and you need to go in a different direction. There's going to be a detour that comes your way. And so if you over plan, I just think that you're wasting time. So you need to take action and then have the mindset to be able to find a way over and around and under any kind of thing that comes to you. And then one last thing is, I think this is really important for people to realize, whether it's a road trip or it's a hike, or it's an outcome-driven goal. It doesn't matter what it is. The last 10% is always the hardest. And it's the hardest because you're going, oh my goodness, I still got to keep going, keep going, keep going. And so in that last percentage, you really got to focus on that mindset and keep your eye on the prize. Just keep moving forward.
So that last 10% of getting to that initial goal.
Yes.
Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Whatever that goal is, you think about it, think about the last road trip you went on. Doesn't matter if it was 5 hours or 10 hours. That last 10% is where you got the most antsy.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So you've been doing this 15 years. You started your business 15 years ago. And I alluded to you were younger. You're still young in my mind.
Well, thank you.
So how, like when you first started approaching the adults, let's just say, did you feel like, well, how am I, this young guy, going to teach these older people? I'm not going to say elderly, older people, give them coaching when? And I don't know if you ever thought this way or not. Like I might not have had the life experiences that they had yet. So how can I really coach them to what they need? How did you figure that out?
Well, I just focused on what I had that was unique. You look at it. I think it's always important to focus on whatever is unique about you. Some people will say competitive edge. Some people will, say all sorts of different things. I just think, what is your unique value proposition? What kind of experience do you have that maybe they don't have? So I work with a lot of people who are employed and want to be a business owner, want to be an entrepreneur, want to move into that direction. And it's like, I actually can't tell you how to make that. I can't tell someone how to make that shift, that transition, because I've never done it. But what I can talk about is the courage to go all in. I can talk about the experience of whenever there's a challenge, whenever the market hits challenges and people start worrying and start freaking out, I don't come to them with the aspect of, or with the attitude of, you can overcome this, even though I've never done it. I go, look, I've stayed the course for 15 years. And yes, if you look at it over the course of 15 years, looks like a victory lap. I've always found a way to be successful. If you look year to year, truthfully, I've always done pretty well. But you look month to month, you look season to season, you look, there's periods of time of 3 months of just, what the heck am I going to do? There's periods of challenge. You think about, like, obviously 2020 was an example of that. But there's been many times throughout the 15 years where I've hit this, I don't want to say rock bottom, but where I've hit this time of challenge where I get the opportunity to either shrink or to grow. And I think that's when champions are really made. When you talk about being chiseled, these are the things that chisel us to become the very best version of us, are the challenges that we face. It's not in the times of everything going great that we become good, that we become great. We become great in the challenges. And I think that that's really important for people to realize. So for me, that's like such a big part of it, is the mindset of what it takes to actually go forward. And people seem to think that that's fluff and airy fairy stuff. But the truth is anyone I've ever known that says, I don't care about that mindset stuff, just tell me the strategy, 100% of them have been the ones who have struggled the most with the mindset part of it. It's like they're trying to run away from those things. They're trying to run away from, I might need to face some kind of metaphorical dragon in order to get there, but they're trying to put their intellect above it. They're trying to outthink the way to get there. And I think at the end of the day, whatever goal someone has, it's a mindset game more than anything else.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because I believe that. I've been reading and studying this stuff for 30, 35 years now. And, the challenge, I don't think people see challenges as gifts as much as I think they should. Because we see a challenge and we want to run, right? Oh, I can't do that. I can't climb that mountain. I can't go under that wall. But that's the challenge in itself, is the gift, and using your mind how to figure it out, the mindset. Would you agree with that?
100%. Tony Robbins says that problems are the gift that we grow from.
Yeah.
We don't think about them like that, but they really are. Every time we have growth, it does. I keep these here just because, I gotta get the guns going. But, I keep these weights right here next to me, these 25-pound weights. I put them right here. So like when I have 5 minutes, boom, I just pump out some weightlifting. But it's not in lifting 5 pounds that your muscles grow. It's in the time of challenge. And guess what? When this becomes too light, it's no longer helping you grow. It's no
Right.
longer helping you grow. You have to go to that next phase. And I think that we often think that personal growth is a start-stop game. Like, well, I got there. I already did that part. I already did the chapter of growing. I'm supposed to be in the happily ever after phase. You can do that if you want, but not and simultaneously want to grow to a next level. Like that's a thing that I think is really important that a lot of people miss is they get to a certain level of success and then they become soft because they think this is it. Like I don't need to grow anymore. I've already done that part. And that's just, you cannot simultaneously want things to be easy and grow. You just have to choose one of them.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny you made me think of. I started my reading in July of 1990, and I was reading every day, probably through 97 or 98. I remember I took a break. I read the book, The Road Less Traveled, and then I read the next book, Further Down the Road Less Traveled, and it was 1997 or 98. And I'm like, you know what? I've read it all. I got it all. I got to start going to work. And I stopped. I stopped reading for, I'm guessing maybe 2 years. And I'm like, and then it hit me like 2, 3 years later. I'm like, what are you doing? You got to get back into reading. And, I've read over 1,200 books in 35 years. And, so you got to keep going. If you're not growing, you're dying. I think you've heard that, that saying.
Yeah.
And I believe that we have to be lifelong. I don't say we have to, but I think my opinion is such that we should be lifelong learners. And I tell my wife, I'm never going to retire. I retire when I'm 6 feet under. I always want to be learning, always. And I think that's what everybody should feel like.
I'll share just a yes, and I'll say it this way. It blows my mind, but some people actually don't want to grow. And I've experienced that before, and not wanting to grow, because that's just how my mind works. And I think you and I are very similar like that. It's like, it doesn't take courage for me to want to grow because I just want to grow. That's just ingrained in me. That I don't know if that was DNA. I don't know if that was upbringing. I don't know what on earth it was. But for whatever reason, I just want to grow, and I'm excited for the next thing. I just like, bring me the next challenge, bring me the next mountain to climb. I want to do it. That's where the fuel and excitement comes for me. But sometimes there's people who don't really want that, and they're actually totally content just having their job that pays them their salary. They do their 9 to 5, they go home, they turn it off, and they do their thing. And it turns out I was wrong. I used to think that no, they couldn't really want that. They must want something more. But it turns out that some people actually want that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I know this: if you want to grow, you cannot choose to not do growth activities. It's like, if you want to grow, you got to do the work. And that work is the basic, simple things. And just like you experience, and I've experienced times like that too, where I went, I don't need to do this stuff anymore. It all sounds the same to me now. Nothing new is coming. Nothing new is coming. But, I bet Steph Curry feels like nothing new is coming when he's taking his 500 shots a day. And he's done that since he was like 12 years old. I bet sometimes that gets like kind of boring.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's like, man, I'm doing 500 shots a day and have done it since I was 12. And I think that's what it really takes to succeed. And one of the problems that we have is when we stop doing those things, you don't lose that edge right away. You just don't. You don't lose the edge right away. It happens over time. And all of a sudden you go, how on earth did I get here? It's like when you go in the ocean and you're swimming in the ocean and you're not paying attention to where which lifeguard tower you're by. You come out and you have drifted half a mile down the beach. And you're trying to figure out, was I at 32 or was I at 33? I don't know where my stuff is. I got to figure it out. It's the same thing. We just drift without being aware of it. And it's a very subtle, slippery slope. We We don't notice it until we go, oh shoot, how did I get here? And that's the reading, that's the studying, that's the meditation, that's the exercise, that's the continuous work. And those things, it's not glamorous, it's not sexy. I can't sell a course saying do the work. You know what I mean? Like, people want some secret sauce, but that's
Yeah.
the truth of the matter, is they just need to do the work consistently. And that work you're talking about is the most important part.
Yeah, you just used a couple words: drift, consistency. Like, my thoughts are, if you do something, whether it's called boring, monotonous, but you have a goal, when you do it, you do that goal, you do that activity, that boring, monotonous activity with consistency over time, and at the end of the day, you're going to produce extraordinary results. And I know you
Yep.
know that. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that too many people are focused on their business and success activities entertaining them. They want
Yeah.
entertainment from those things, and honestly, it's not even something I think about. Like, to me, if I want something, maybe it's because of coming from a sports background, but to me, it's just like, look, yes, I wasn't doing what Steph Curry was doing, and obviously I didn't make it to professional sports, but I was in the batting cage every single day. And if I, even when I was 13, 14, didn't have a driver's license, if I couldn't get to a batting cage, I was hitting off a tee in the backyard. I had to get 100 swings a day. And I just was obsessive with it because I knew where I wanted to go. And so maybe it comes from that, but it's that, like, you have those two words there, that grit and that grind. I think it takes that consistent grind. It takes that consistent grit. That's just what it takes. And sometimes it's boring, and you kind of got to
It
get over
is.
that.
Yeah, you remind me of something else. I forgot. I failed to tell everybody that Jake's unfortunately a Dodger Blue fan, and I know they won the World Series last year, and I'm a Baltimore Oriole guy. But anyway, I do remember the Orioles sweeping the Dodgers in 1966, if that was
Well,
correct.
that's true. That's true.
So we got you on that. Although
Okay, there you go.
you guys are buying your talent now. I'm just busting your chops. I'm busting your chops. But I remember, look, and no, I don't know what instilled this in me. I remember getting my allowance as a kid, and I'm like, they used to have the thing called Johnny Bench Batter Up. I don't even know if you know that is.
Of course I
But
know. Yeah. Big red
so,
machine.
so what he had to, so what I did is, I took up my mom's flower pot, I emptied it out, got a bag of cement, put it in there, I put the pole in there with the rubber band on the plastic thing, and I'd hit righty, lefty, righty, lefty. I do it every day, whether it was 100, 200 swings every day. And I'm like, I just did it. You just did it. You just do it.
Yep.
And it's going to produce results. And I think that's where faith comes in, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
100%. I mean, there's a couple things with this. I think that success is rewarded to people who have passion. And a lot of times people are talking down about passion. And I think it's nuts to talk down about passion, because it takes real passion to be able to push through something when you're not seeing those results. But you see the real successes when consistent effort meets opportunity. And sometimes that opportunity comes 10 years into the game. Sometimes that opportunity comes 1 year into the game and you were lucky. But we're not talking about mega success. It comes from when consistent effort meets opportunity. That's where those mega successes come. And so it's having that faith that you're going to see something good come from it. But I also think that's why it's so important to really have the passion behind what you do. I heard Jerry Seinfeld talking about this. I thought it was really interesting. He was talking about what he would have done if Seinfeld didn't take off, if the TV show didn't take off. And he said, the same thing I would have done the 15 years before that. I was a touring comedian, making a living, doing comedy. I wasn't famous, but I didn't really care. I love the craft. I love the craft of comedy. So to him, it was about this craft, and he would have continued doing the same thing whether or not that show came about. And so it's just a really interesting thing to look at. He probably would have got a show, would have got something at some other point if that one didn't work out. But the point is that the people who really succeed, I believe, and succeed long term, not a flash in the pan, not someone who just comes a one-hit wonder in the music world. It's someone who's willing to do that work consistently, even if they don't see the mega results right away.
Yeah, I agree. You said before you said success. You believe success is awarded to those who have passion, and I'm like, passion is derived from the word suffering. I don't know if you know that or not. So it's
Yeah.
derived from the word suffering, and so it's not a negative thing in this sense of the word. I'm like, you have to be, and I'll say it this way: you have to be willing to suffer through the monotony and the consistency to reach that goal you want to reach. And that's, to me, that's passion, man. And having the
Yes.
passion to like never give up, keep going at it, being willing to struggle, being willing to suffer through those struggles to
Yes.
get to that ultimate goal.
Yeah, well, it's exactly what you're talking about, Rob, when you're talking about doing the boring work, doing the things. It's like when someone says like, well, I want it to be fun along the path. I'm like, well, to me, if I want something, if that really matters to me, I'm having fun doing the work. Like, okay, growing up, I did a lot of manual labor. And then in my early 20s, I did a lot of manual labor. And I can say that I had a lot of fun doing that. I had a lot of fun doing that because I was doing it with people that I liked being with. And, we're swinging a hammer, making jokes, we're laying bricks on the ground, joking around, having fun, doing that kind of thing. So you can have fun doing any activity that you're doing. You can enjoy it. But when it comes to that consistent grind, I think it's really about having something that is driving you. Now, right now in our current society, for whatever reason, the word motivation has got a lot of flack. The people say, no, you don't need motivation, you need discipline. I say nonsense. Everything is about motivation. And here's the reason why. Motivation is a neutral word. It is not a synonym for excitement. Motivation is what is the motive behind what you are doing? As in, why are you doing this? And someone having the discipline day in and day out to do the activity to get them to where they want to be, they are motivated by where they are going. And so, like this whole idea, my company name is Mountaintop Motivation. To me, I grew up in Southern California looking at these gorgeous mountains. We're in the city, and people don't think about LA with mountains, but man, the mountains in LA are gorgeous. You have these San Gabriel Mountains, looking up at these mountains. And by the way, they've cleaned up a lot of this, but the air quality in LA is nothing compared to what it used to be. Air quality today is actually pretty dang good. When I was a
Oh, it
kid,
is.
oh, it's great. They have, it used to be in comparison. Now, there's other cities obviously that are way, way better. But the point is it is so much better than it was in the 90s. In the 90s, the air quality was horrendous, and they've done a lot to clean up the air. But when I was a kid, there were many days where you could not see the mountains, these big giant mountains that are 5 miles away. You couldn't see them. Like literally, it just looked like clouds. It just looked hazy. You couldn't
From
see
the
them.
smog.
From the
all
smog. Exactly. That's
Yeah.
how bad it was at the time. But on those days right after it rained or on a clear day or whatever, it wasn't every day, but when you could see the mountains, I would look at these mountains and I would just dream about things. It was like my trigger for the dreaming about life and what that meant. Then me and my family spent a lot of time in the mountains, going up there, but then going to Yosemite and going to these beautiful places. And to me, it was always like this dream world. And so I always loved this analogy of reaching the mountaintop as your vision, your goal, what it is that you're going to obtain, what you're going to get to. And with that being said, it's the perfect analogy of taking a road, taking a path, hiking up the trail, climbing it, any of those things. It's this perfect analogy of what it's like to reach any goal. And so for me, when I say that the name of my company, the name of my LLC is Mountaintop Motivation, and why is that? Is because we're motivated by the vision of where we're going. And that is what creates that step by step by step that adds that discipline that's necessary to get where you want to be.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's awesome. You said use the word dreaming, and earlier used another phrase, and I'll come back to it. But do you recall or remember when whether it was the first book or the first video you watched, or what was the trigger that got you into personal growth and development? Do you remember that first book, whatever that got you there?
I don't know the first book I ever read on personal development. It actually probably was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's
Okay.
probably the first one, because at the time my brother was working at a Franklin Covey store. Even though this
Okay.
is not excuse me, this is not something that he's really into. It was just kind of a job, and he was really into it at the time, but it's not something he's continued being into. But he was working at, they used to have physical Franklin Covey stores, and they had all the binders and all that kind of stuff. So he was working at one of these places, and he'd come home with all these different books and stuff like that, which was really cool. But my goal at the time was building a career in music, and I knew that that was going to require being able to face rejection. So I had this idea of like, well, if I want to succeed at this, I should probably be willing to face rejection. So I started being interested in personal development and personal growth. So 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was one of those early ones. Another early one, there was a book, little tiny book called 212 Degrees.
I have
And
it. I have
yeah,
it.
it's about boiling water. That was one of the first ones. Also, reading the book As a Man Thinketh was really early on as well. Um, Man's Search for Meaning was another one, Viktor Frankl. That led to getting into Jack Canfield and Success Principles, those kind of things. That also got into getting into Tony Robbins. And I remember my first big, huge investment in my life was spending $300 for a big audio program. And to me, that was a fortune, spending at the time. Like,
Uh-huh.
oh my gosh, what a risk. But because it was a risk for me, I still to this day have that 30-hour program basically memorized. I
Do
mean,
you really?
I can't say I could go word for word, but I can go point for point with it, I mean, especially if I was listening to it, I know what's coming next because I listened to it again and again and again and again to where it became a part of me. And anyway, that's kind of how it started. And the thing is I got into personal growth because I wanted to be able to face rejection. Like I said, I always had the desire to make a positive impact, and I always was into the idea of intrinsic value of individuals. And I don't know exactly, maybe that came from my faith, maybe I don't know exactly, but that was always there. But the getting into the success world, the strategies of success, those kind of things, it started as this idea of I need to be able to face rejection. So that's how I got into it. Then I got from there into this idea of, well, I'm not going to continue with this music path, but I really love this personal development stuff. So at the time, I didn't know anything about the coaching world, the speaking world, anything like that. I just thought you had to already be super famous in order to do those kind of things. I just didn't know what the path was. So I'm going to go and get my degree in psychology, and I'm going to go be a counselor, work with teenagers. My grandfather was a psychiatrist, and he had passed away recently before this all started. And he was my hero growing up. So my first book really was just listening to my grandpa. He was just
Uh-huh.
awesome, and he did little local seminars and things like that through church and things like that were all about a positive attitude. So much of it was like listening to him, listening to him growing up. But anyway, I got to this point to where I wanted to do something in this human development and growth world. And that's when I had that idea to start speaking and to start mixing music with that. But even that was great, and that took me all over the place. And music was kind of the hook to get me in the door. That was the hook to do it. But I continued down that path, and I grew such a love for personal development and growth that even though I love music today, but it's not something I do professionally. It's not something I even do all that regularly. But I do still enjoy it. I still love it. But my love shifted into this personal development and personal growth, and that's where I started going, and that was where the development took me. So I think life takes you on interesting paths when you follow your passion. Sometimes they change.
Oh, I think it's going to change. I mean, nothing ever. I guess I shouldn't say never, but things don't always pan out the way you plan them.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, you're gonna have tangents along the way. Things are gonna. You don't. I love what you said earlier about don't have a perfect plan, just have a plan, and
Yeah.
and it's gonna adjust along the way, and be willing to make those adjustments. Be willing to say, okay, do I go right or left here? And then make a decision. If it's wrong, then you go back the other way. If it's right, you keep going. You figure something else out.
Yep.
Jake, you said something earlier, and I love this because I think about this often. You say you got to have the courage to go all in. You said
Yeah.
that very early in this conversation. Like, so I sit there, like, from a spiritual standpoint, right? I think God's always talking to us, right? So some of us don't hear it at all because the wires are all crossed and we're not willing to hear it. Some of us hear that voice talking to you and we don't take the action. Some of us hear it and we may have one foot in. But then there's those that hear it and have the courage to go all in, right? So what is going all in mean to Jake Ballentine?
I mean, as cliche as it sounds, it means burning the ships. It means
Mhm.
going all in, and I'm not a backup plan guy. I
No
to be
plan B.
honest, yeah, to be honest with you, I mean, here's what I think plan B should be. Plan B should be when something doesn't work out, figure out what you're going to do next. But this
Yeah.
nonsense of working on my A plan and my B plan at the same time almost always guarantees that you're going to get plan B. It almost always guarantees that. Now, there are realities of life, and I understand that. And when I went all in into this business, I went from being a poor college student to being a poor entrepreneur. And that was actually by design. So it was by design. And my reason was I was offered 2 jobs out of college. And I knew that if I took that job, it was going to become golden handcuffs. I was not going to let go of that because of the certainty that comes from it. So I didn't want to become comfortable. I did not want to become comfortable because I knew if I became comfortable, I was not going to be able to succeed. So here's what all in means to me. All in for someone who has a job right now that's taking care of their family needs. I am not saying quit your job today. What I am saying is there might be other things that you can sacrifice. If it really matters to you and you're saying, I'm not willing to quit this job because this is what's taking care of my family, this is what's doing that, fantastic. But if you really want something, then what else are you willing to sacrifice to get there? All in means doing whatever you can to get to where you want to be. All in means when, not if, but when you hit a bump in the road, you're able to follow the words of Winston Churchill, which is success comes after you are willing or after you are able to go from disappointment or to go from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. That's where all in is. And it's all in is saying, if something doesn't work out, I'm not going to immediately pivot to a new thing. I'm going to keep going until I get there, whatever that means for you. For me, I'm not a dip my toe in the shallow end kind of a guy. I'm a cannonball in the deep end kind of guy. And so that's just kind of what works for me. But I'm totally fine with whoever is listening to this doing what works for them. But don't lie to yourself either. Don't lie to yourself and say, I'm working on it, when in reality, you're working on it only when you're done with everything else. So, to someone who has a full time, busy job and lots of responsibilities, all in might be putting your work time on your calendar before anything else and working around that. All in might be, I might need to sacrifice being a part of this particular sports league so that I can give what I really need to give. So anyway, to me, that's what all in really means. I'll tell you one quick story. Is that okay? Can I share a quick
Yeah,
story?
yeah. Please do.
I early on in my speaking career, I was making okay money. I was doing okay. Um, but I wasn't thriving yet. And I knew that I needed help. I knew that I needed coaching. I knew that I needed an outside eye. And to be honest, it's not like it drastically changed everything. Just that outside eye is what gave me the direction I needed to be able to move forward and to be able to create what I wanted to create. But anyway, I knew that I needed help. I knew that I needed support. I knew that I needed coaching, but I also couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford it because I could not afford my rent and this coaching program that I wanted to do. I couldn't afford the two of them at the same time. And my wife, who's the most supportive, wonderful wife I could possibly hope for, we had been married for maybe 2 years at this point, maybe 2 years, something like that. And she said, I think we need to do it. And I said, but I don't see how. I don't see how I can do this. And she said, well, your parents keep telling us that we can move in with them anytime we need it. So why don't we move in with them? That way you're able to afford this. You're able to afford paying for it. And then we're going to be right back where you want to be soon after that. And I pushed back. I said, I don't want to do that. We've been married for 2 years. I want to provide a home for you. I want to be the provider. I want to do all that. And she said two things. One, she said, if you were getting a graduate degree and it happened to be in the same town that your parents live in, don't you think we would save the money and live there by not taking on that extra debt? Don't you think we would do that? And so it hit me logically. I went, yeah, we probably would do that. Let's say I was getting a master's degree and it was at UCLA, or not UCLA. Yeah, if it was somewhere like that, it was somewhere close by. Of course, we just live there, and we do that because my parents are awesome and they're super supportive and great. And then the second thing is she said, don't rob me of letting me be a part of your success story.
Wow, that's profound right there. That's big.
She also
Say that again, Jake. Say that again. That's big.
Don't rob me of letting me be a part of your success story. And she continued on to say, you don't understand me. I'm a gold digger. I just happen to be a gold digger with patience.
Oh my, that's great. That is great.
So that was my all-in story, and I did that, and it took me about 6 months. I had the pressure on. I was all in, and about 6 months later, I was in a position where we were able to move out because I was able to afford both of those things. And within the year, I was thriving in that business because I was willing to put my money where my mouth was.
Wow, that's big, man. Thanks for sharing that, man. And speaking all in, thanks for going all in today, man. It's been awesome chatting with you here. And I know we gotta wrap this up here in a second. So, hey, Jake, I ask everybody the same question, and I pretty much know the answer, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. It's like, so how much more chiseling is God gonna have going on for Jake in the rest of his life, in the future of his life? How much more chiseling you got?
Wow, that's so interesting. And I'm so curious when you say you know the answer. I'm so curious what you think the answer is. I'll let you answer that afterwards. But to me, I feel like I've just started. There's so much more. How much more chiseling does God have? I've just begun. That's how I see it.
There you go. Most people say just begun. I got a whole lot more. I hope it never ends. It is. It's like almost like a rhetorical question, but I just like to have you think. It's like, what do you see going on in the rest of your world and the rest of your life that God's going to chisel you into the person you're still yet to become?
Yes, I think it's important for people to realize who are probably the kind of people listening to this. People don't listen to this if they're not this kind of person that are into personal development, growth, and chiseling and those kind of things. There's probably a lot of people in your life that don't understand what you're doing. Maybe you're doing something right now. Here's an example. A friend of mine left a job at a successful company. The company was reputable. It was something that everyone was very proud of him for doing. It looked cool on his Facebook profile. He left the job to do door-to-door sales because he had an incredible skill at doing door-to-door sales. Everyone went, you're nuts for doing this. Why on earth would you do that? That's absolutely crazy. Well, what he was doing was he was bankrolling money with a skill that he had that he didn't want to do long-term, but he knew that he could work a couple summers in a row doing this door-to-door sales, and he could make more than he could at this other job. And his purpose was to get seed money for his real estate investments. Now we're 10, 15 years later, this guy's a multimillionaire. Nobody understood what he was doing, but he understood what he was doing. So sometimes in order to succeed, you might have to do something that looks like a step backwards, but you know it's not a step backwards. So go for it, and go for it anyway. And even if they don't understand, it does not matter. It's your life. Follow your guidance. Follow what is true to you. And even if it looks like a step backwards, I promise you, it's going to pay off.
I love that, Jake. I got chills when you said that. I totally love that. And I think people have to understand it's what you believe, not what others believe. It's what you believe. And if you believe in you, and if you're willing to bet on you, it doesn't go wrong, right? So,
yep.
Man, you're awesome, man. This would be great. Hey, Jake, real quick before we let you go, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, wanted to be part of the Mountaintop Mastermind, or wanted to engage in any of your services, how would they get a hold of you?
So best way to get in touch with me is just looking me up on social media, whether that's Facebook, whether that is LinkedIn. Those are the two places, both at Jake Ballentine. But then also you can go to mtmsuccess.com. That is for Mountaintop Motivation, mtmsuccess.com. You can connect with me through there.
Or you can just call me and I'll give you his information.
Perfect. There you go. Yeah, not quite willing to just give out my cell on a podcast, but Rob, if you feel like they're great, go ahead and just give them my cell.
I'm happy to send people your way, buddy. I'm happy to do that. Look, man, Jake, thanks so much for being here today. Thanks for going all in again on this podcast. Thanks for blessing us with your wisdom, your inspiration, and your motivation. I appreciate you. I'm sure I'll be talking to you again soon. And until next time, everybody, let's go get chiseled.